we'll go ahead and begin this webinar. And for those that are here and others that are logging in as I speak, we'd just like to welcome you all once again to New Perspectives. You all know that our theme for this year has been the transformation of the body. And it's being hosted, New Perspectives, by Aro University in Surat and the Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Centers in Surat and Fountain Inn. And I am Rade, and I am being joined by Vladimir. We're both here at the Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Fountain Inn. So with us here also today is Dr. Soumitra Basu. Dr. Basu is a psychiatrist working with consciousness paradigms. He conducts workshops on personal growth and is a founder and editor of NAMA, the Journal of Integral Health. As you know, Dr. Basu is deeply interested in the interplay of Aurobindonian metaphysics and mental health and has developed a module of consciousness-based psychology. Along with Dr. Michael Miovic, Dr. Basu has authored a book on this topic, which looks at psychopathology and counseling from an entirely new perspective that arises from the experiential teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. In our last New Perspectives talk, Dr. Michael Miovic discussed the influence of mental formations on the body. And so today, Dr. Basu extends this discussion to vital formations and their influences on the body. Before turning it over to Dr. Basu, we would just suggest for all attendees, if there are any questions, we will have a Q&A session towards the end, and please post in the Q&A box. We appreciate that and very much looking forward to this talk today, Dr. Basu, and I'll turn it over to you. And you will also have to unmute yourself.
Both good evening to you and good morning to you in different time zones. And it was very refreshing to get such a new kind of topic by Grace, by Vladimir and Rade. And I hope that we'll be able to do justice to this topic, which is a bit out of way, but it is also a very important and very, very practical topic. Talking about the vital formation. You know, in my psychiatric practice, the first time I was confronted with a very difficult vital formation, and I understood the power of vital formation when one day one doctor who was 1 year junior to me and who had been treated for depression and migraine pain for about 20 years. She was being under treatment and she was getting a lot of medicines. And once only during her pregnancy, I had stopped the medicines and used acupuncture for some time for her headaches. You know that acupuncture works on headaches. But it was short-lived. Her pregnancy was okay. It was not disturbed, but then she came out and postpartum depression was more severe. And then after many, many years of suffering, one day she comes to me and she tells me that you have to do something. I said, why? Well, I am constantly seeing my dead body hanging over myself. My corpse is dangling over my head. And I can't remove it. You see, it is pressurizing me. I myself, I am pressurizing me as a dead body above me. And I can't do anything. And it was so powerful, so powerful. Then I couldn't do anything. I was at my wit's end. And I was feeling that this vision of her corpse dangling over her head would drive her to commit suicide. So the first, I had no other option, but I told her that I will give you an ECT, an electric current. And she agreed because she's a doctor, you know, it's difficult to give doctors, but she was suffering so much that she agreed. And I gave her one ECT, only one ECT. She didn't need a course of ECTs. And immediately, within half an hour, she told me that it was very good that you gave me that ECT, that electric current. Otherwise, I would have committed suicide today. Then I understood that for so many years, she has been suffering from depression and thinking about negative things, that I will die, I will not live. You see, depression brings about all negative things. And depression comes from their vital plane of consciousness. So it was a vital construction, and that is why it was so powerful. You see, if it is really only what you call an obsessive people who suffer from obsessions, they can make mental constructions which might be fluctuating. But a vital formation, something she has constructed in that vital plane, in the plane of her life energy, in a plane of her what you call our emotions. Now there is the plane of the vital, what we call Sri Aurobindo calls vital, that plane which holds our life energy, our emotions and all, which is the plane where depression originates. And there that formation was so powerful that that formation became independent and it was possessing her. Then I understood that it is one of the types of possessions. No? It is one of the type of possessions. We talk about different types of possession states. It's not always that you are possessed by other things, like other spirits or ghosts or something. It is yourself, no? It is your own vital formation that can possess you also. Of course, there are other entities in the atmosphere, they can come and they can disturb you, they can possess you. That's a different thing. There are hostile beings or hostile forces in the cosmic consciousness. They can come and they can also possess you. But being possessed by a vital formation, is something different. And because it is vital, it is powerful, it is dynamic. It was just possessing her like anything. So then I understood that this was a real vital formation. So keeping this in mind, when Vladimir told me to take up this topic, this was the first thing that came to my mind. And keeping this in mind, we'll go on. We'll share the screen and we'll come to the slides so that it will help me to have a structured giveaway. So this is just for people who have just entered and who are wondering at the word formation, or you are not conversant with the word formation now. That formation is what? What is a formation? A formation is a construction we make at the realm of ideas. And it is not only that we make a construction in the plane of ideas, we invest it with force. We can invest it with force, and so that it becomes sustainable, it becomes sustained. So a formation is a construction we can make at the realm of ideas, and we invest it with so much force, and then we repeat it, reinforce it, so that it becomes sustainable. Now, usually what we make mental constructions. Some constructions become universal and archetypal. You see, so they can become permanent. You see, like some constructions, they become universal. They're the constructions we make. Now, our ethical mind makes constructions of hells and heavens. And you see, they are just states of consciousness. Hell is not a place like that you go from one country to another country, you just entering. It's not like that, a geographical place. Hell is what we call hell is a plane of consciousness. But our ethical mind has made constructions in such a way that they have become independent by their own right. And they influence generations of people of different cultures. Different people of different cultures have different mental constructions about all these ethical modes. So these are formations. We are used to this kind of formations. Or then we know that people make formations at the level of the mind, which can bring out stereotyped ideas that can lead to what you call stereotype thinking, and can then also lead to these formations. Can then also lead to fundamentalist type of thinking that we see all over us, all over the world, which is still a great problem. You see, there are fundamentalist ways of seeing things, and these things do not seem to go out. You can't explain to people that it is irrational to think in such a way. Why? Because they have become formations. You see, when an idea is not only a flexible idea, but it has become a formation, then it is very difficult to change it. And that is why the people who are the leaders of different sects, or different type of religious groups, which have their very weird and hardcore ideas, which they can't live out. because they have already made it a formation and they can't come out of it. So it's very difficult. But formations are not only mental. They can happen at the level of the vital too, at the plane of life energy. As I told you about this case of this lady doctor who had this vital formation of herself, possessing herself. Now, I'll give an example in the fantasy world of small children. You see, 1.5 years old children all over the world, in all cultures, they all get hooked to cartoon figures today, like Tom and Jerry or Doraemon. What is most interesting is that if you are looking at the television when they are watching these serials, you might find that you are not understanding anything, but the children understand. With that, you see the expression in their eyes, you see the expression in their faces. All the children all over the world, they are attracted to the same cartoon figures, irrespective of their culture, irrespective of the religion, their nationalities, and all. So that means that these cartoon figures, they have become, as formations, they have become stabilized in universal consciousness. Some kind of archetypes they have become, and the little children, small children, even 1.5 years old children can relate to it. You see, they have not developed that cognitive apparatus to that extent as adults do, but they are developing what we call a vital mind, because the mind is gradually developing in the matrix of life energy. You see, first we have matter, and then we have life energy, and then life energy comes and animates matter, and in that animated matter, then mind is going to blossom. So that formation, that vital mind is being formed. At that stage, one gets hooked, one can get hooked to all these things, these cartoon figures, and you see, actually it is happening all over the world. You see the power of these vital formations of the children. So if you watch children, you will find, and you try to see that what they are seeing, you will never understand anything, but they are understanding all things, and you'll be surprised to see the wisdom in them. So now we are talking about vital formations at our level, but then what? We'll taking this as an introduction, we go to something deeper. You see that vitality means that life energy, vitality means creativity. And when at first there was what was there? There was matter that was inert matter, lifeless inert matter. And then on that inert matter, the life energy will come and stimulate that inert matter to come out with the manifestation that we see today. So they are the original vital formations made by God, by the Supreme, by the Creator. So we'll try to go to that the vital formations not that made by us, or not that made at our level, but the vital formations that were made at the level of the Creator, the creative mind. So that manifestation can occur. On the inert base of matter, something can manifest. So that was a great thing. That was the first vital formations were made so that manifestation can happen, that creation should happen. So it was not at the level of ideas only that the creation was programmed. The creation was programmed also at the level of execution. And at the level of execution, the vital factor comes in. So that is what we'll try to understand a bit. That the universal, vital is a universal life energy, which is represented in the vital plane of consciousness. And we know that matter first evolved from the inconscience. And Sri Aurobindo said that the hallmark of material consciousness was accomplished divisibility, which means that matter, when it manifested, it resulted in forms. Matter was divisible, and the divisibility resulted in forms. But these forms were lifeless, inert, so devoid of any quality. But how can vitality develop in the matrix of inertia? How can qualities develop from non-quality, from what we call non-qualia? You see, this is a very great question. You see, David Chalmers, I like to quote David Chalmers. Why? Because he not only pointed out that this is a hard problem of consciousness research. The hard problem of consciousness research, that you can understand everything of consciousness except one thing. How can a vibrant, a colorful, a multivariated manifestation come out from the bosom of something which is very inert, something which is the subject of physics and chemistry? Now, why it is important? Because it is Chalmers' question which reintroduced the position of consciousness in psychology. Though Chalmers is not a psychologist, David Chalmers is not a psychologist, he's a consciousness researcher. But it is his question which actually had a very great effect. The Encyclopedia of Psychology had actually at one time removed consciousness from the encyclopedia after behaviorism came in. And that when consciousness was reintroduced, one of the main factors that it was given importance was because that David Chalmers raised this question, that this is the one answer which science cannot give, that how can qualities develop from something which doesn't have any quality. So, and then Sri Aurobindo solves that hard problem. So this is just not, this is what you call recapitulation of what these things we have done before. Just a small recapitulation that Sri Aurobindo describes, that whatever is going to evolve is already involved as a potentiality. So nothing comes from vacuum, nothing will come out from zero. It is not that the inconscient is zero or blank, but something is hidden there. Phenomenally, it is blank, but fundamentally, it contains everything in potentia. And the dormant qualities that they descended prior to the evolution, through a process of involution. And whenever evolution occurs, there are two forces that are acting: an upward force that presses from below. But when the involution was happening, when the superconscious was coming down to descend and sink into the inconscience, it was producing non-evolutionary worlds. Again, a very difficult concept. I think those of you who are interested, you can go back to our previous series where we have talked in details about this. Those of you who would find this a bit difficult, you can skip this. This slide, particular slide, you can skip this just for the completing the whole thing that I included, that at every level of evolution, something from the evolutionary world or the non-evolutionary world, something from there, it comes and it influences the evolution and supplements the force that is coming from below. So something that comes from above is coming and stimulating, so that what is there below will also be stimulated to come up. So something like, it is a very complex process. Again, we will not go into it. You can, for your interest, you can go to our previous discussions on this, and you can skip it if you find it too difficult. But to cut the story short, that the vital plane manifests when life energy from such non-evolutionary plane or the universal vital plunges upon the inert matrix of matter. So the vital plane, from the vital plane, the universal vital plane, the life energy will come and it will jump upon the matrix of matter. It animates matter, infuses vital energy in an inert matrix, and therefore the bursting out of this colorful evolution that happens. But nothing is done haphazardly. Mind you, nothing is done haphazardly. You see, it is done very systematically. It is done according to a particular plan. It is done according to a particular program. So there was a programming that was going on. There was a programming. According to that programming, something was happening. So the universal life energy puts its creative touch to produce an enormous variety of forms, brings vibrancy and dynamism. So that is the formation made by the superconscious. That is the formation made by the creative mind, which has created the worlds. Whatever you name, you give it to it. You call it God, you call it Ishara, you call it the creator, whatever name you give to that plane of consciousness, where everything was programmed. And the universal life energy, from there it brings that message, and it brings that creative touch to produce that variety of forms. And not only that, the universal life energy is not only producing forms, but the content of the forms it is also designing, like our organs, no? Like the Sri Aurobindo's words. These are the Sri Aurobindo's words, that it has a capacity of instrumental development and modification, which means that it is also producing the particular forms and the particular organs also inside each of our forms. So all these things are being made by the original vital energy which is coming up, and all the different formations that are being made. So the formations are the different, what you call, items in creation that will manifest. And in each item, there will be different formations also needed to produce the different organs, different systems which are running that whole, that whole being. Each one of us has different systems operating inside us. And each system is a result of a certain particular vital formation that has been commissioned from above. So this vital energy is bringing its creativity from where? Is bringing its creativity from the supernal planes. And the creation is programmed in the supreme creative consciousness, which is called the supermind. You know, the supermind, what Sri Aurobindo calls the supermind, is a plane where the creation is programmed. And then organized, it is not only programmed, it is programmed at one plane. And then that is the plane of integral cognition. And then at the next plane of global cognition, this programming has become organized as spiritual archetypes. Mind you, I'm not talking about Jungian archetypes, which are different things, which are sort of cultural phenomena, which are there in the collective unconscious. But I'm talking about a different kind of archetype, a spiritual archetype, which is there in the overmind, and which have to be then replicated in the earthly reality. You see, the perfected forms are there, they are kept. There is a perfect form of something. A perfect form of a human being is kept as a spiritual archetype. A perfect form of a flower is kept as a spiritual archetype. And then in our earthly life, that has to be reproduced, replicated. So this is the work that is done by the process of creation, that the replication has to be done there. But the replication is not perfect. It's not going to be very perfect. Why it is not going to be very perfect? Because in the art life, what we see in the art life, the phenomenon art life is rising from the inconscious. And the inconscious, it sucks up all the energy that comes from above. It has all the opposite attributes of the superconscious. So that it can distort things. It can make things divine. It can dilute all the powers that come from above. That is why the perfect archetype of everything that is situated in the global cognition, when it manifests on the earth, that manifestation is not 100% perfect. It's not 100% perfect. And it is our sadhana to make it perfect in the liking of heaven. Otherwise, heaven will not blossom on earth. Heaven cannot be replicated on earth. Heaven can only be replicated on earth. You see, not by just prayers and by ethics and by all these things, but by a very disciplined programming where we are trying to make things perfect according to the spiritual archetype of the replicas that are there in the global field of global cognition, where things have been designed. Very difficult. It's very difficult. So life energy brings the creative programs to manifest life, vitality, and dynamism in the earthly matrix. You see, life energy is bringing that creative program. Life energy, where from it is bringing? It is bringing from the superconscious. Life energy is bringing that message from the superconscious to manifest it on earth. But on the earth, whatever it manifests, it cannot do it perfectly. Because it cannot do it perfectly, we have to aspire, we have to pray. And that is what is most beautifully portrayed in this very famous poem of Rose of God, one of the greatest mystical poems in the literature of the earth, I would say. And those of you who are interested in poetry can read Amal Kiran's or K.D. Setna's very long introduction to this subject, to this and explanation stage by stage of this Rose of God. There are 5 stanzas in this poem, and in each stanza there are 4 lines. The first 2 lines reflect the perfect archetypes which are there in the heaven, and the second 2 lines are the invocation, our aspiration, our prayers, so that it can come and manifest as it is there high above. Because in the earth it is deformed, it is defiled, it is deviated, it is diluted. So that aspiration has to come from there. That's the most wonderful aspiration that we can have, that we make a formation that is going to represent the heavenly formation. So you see that there are different planes of the consciousness are represented in that poem. Now this particular stanza represents the life plane. It is representing the life plane. So where from the plane of life, from the plane of the vital, this pair is going up, the last 2 lines, and our supreme archetype of what is there going to be manifested in the vital is there above. In the first 2 lines, Rose of God, smitten purple with the incarnate divine desire, rose of life crowded with petals, colors layered. So this is there above with the incarnate divine desire. But there is one word which strikes a chord, smitten, S-M-I-T-T-E-N, smitten. So you see that saying that there is some problem is going to happen. You see that some problem is going to happen when it is going to come to the earth. So that is why the word smitten has been very, delicately introduced there into these 2 lines. Rose of God, smitten purple with the incarnate divine desire. Rose of life crowded with petals, colors layered. And then from the earth, this aspiration, transform the body of the mortal like a sweet and magical rhyme. Bridge our earthhood and heavenhood, make deathless the children of time. You see, something you can conceive at the level of the ideas, but to make it permanent, you have to make it you have to make it permanent only when the vital factor comes in. At the level of ideas, something can be theoretical, something can be utopian. You can have a very perfect ideation of what is going to happen. But replicated on in the earth, then you need to have the vital. So that vital formation is necessary. Otherwise, with mere ideas, you cannot run the show. So this is a very beautiful poem. We'll come back to the last two lines at the end of our slide when we are ending our deliberation. And so the first vital formations for the life energy, the vital designs of our organs, they become the reparator of our emotions. They were first vital formations. What does it do? It links mind with matter, carries the nervous system, interacts with matter to produce the vital physical plane of consciousness. You see, the first vital formation, very important, was to jump on the matter or the physical to produce a combination called vital physical. And this vital physical is very important. If you read the letters on yoga, you will see that you will understand the genesis of many of our diseases, and especially many of our diseases of the nervous system. Then you have to understand the vital physical. And the vital pours into the material forms to make a vibrant manifestation. But it can also, the life energy can also disengage from the physical plane. It can animate a physical plane. But at one point of time, if the physical plane is no longer capable of holding the life energy, then it can disengage from it. And that is when death occurs. Death occurs when the physical plane is unable to hold that life energy for different reasons. For different reasons, the physical plane is unable to hold the life energy. That's why it carries the Eros and the Thanatos both together. And these are the first effects of the vital formations of the body, which are programmed by the supreme creative consciousness. But things are not smooth. Things are not smooth. And this, when we understand vital formations, the effect, we are talking about the supernal vital formations. What does it have effect on what does it affect our lives? Of course, it is going to have a great effect. Very, very great effect. And for that, we have to understand the first time a friction occurred in the evolution. The first friction that occurred in the evolution. And what was that friction? When the life energy impinged on inert matter to produce the manifestation, there was a gigantic friction. There was a heavy, because the matter was not only inert, it was phenomenally, it was non-living, it was dead, it was in a mighty slumber. And the life energy comes and stimulates it. And there is a mighty friction, mighty friction. And that friction is releasing the dormant life energy which is below. I told you that the unconscious contains the dormant life energy. And to release that dormant life energy, you needed that friction. And this, this was the first friction in the matrix of evolutionary consciousness. And this friction produces a vital physical plane. So the life energy comes from above, it strikes the matter, and it not only strikes it, at an optimal point, the striking becomes so powerful that it allows the dormant life energy which is there below to come up on the surface. And together then where something blossoms, the manifestation starts to occur. Now, this primal friction which happened when the vital energy jumped on the matter, it is still hiding in our inconscience, in the inconscience. It is still dormant in our bodily systems, in our organs, in our cells. And it can surge up any time at the time of crisis. So you see, like a PTSD, you know that we have a disease called post-traumatic stress disorder. In post-traumatic stress disorder, what happens, that suppose you have seen an accident in front of your eyes, a ghastly accident. People died and there was a lot of blood. It was very ghastly to see, and you had a lot of emotional reaction on seeing that accident. After many, many years, when you remember that accident, you not only remember it as a picture, you remember it physically, all the emotions that you had at that time, that anguish that you had in yourself, that fear and turbulence that you had in your vital, all those can be relieved. So that is called PTSD. It was very rare before, but today with the growth of all this terrorism, people dying due to terrorist activities, wars, and also natural calamities have increased, like earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, all these things, storms and all that. So this has increased. PTSD also actually has increased in the population. Now, like that, this primal friction, which is present as a memory in the inconscious, can surge up during at times of our crisis. And if you have some pain, that pain can be actually upheld by that primal pain. You see, the cause of the pain, sometimes it happens that we suffer from a pain for a particular cause, but even the cause is removed, that the pain continues to pain continues to be present as a habit. A very common thing all over the world, it happens that pain continues to be present as a habit, but the original cause of pain is not there, because in the matrix of our inconscious, this primal friction which produced that first pain, first suffering that was produced. You see, without pain, because when there was a friction, there was a pain and suffering. A pain and suffering of a different kind, of a different magnitude. It is occurring at the cosmic plane. You see, you can't understand it individually. You have to understand it at the cosmic plane, at the cosmic level. Only when you are suffering from pain, intractable pain, then you can understand that what is there corresponding in the cosmos. Before that, we can't understand actually. But if you see from the cosmic vision that is the primal pain and suffering that is there, that is starting when this friction is happening. And we are still continuing with that. That memory sustains our pain and suffering, and that pain and suffering persist in our physical, psychological, social spheres. Everywhere they persist. And interventions to reduce pain and suffering have multiplied. But the prevalence of pain and suffering continues. Prevalence of pain and suffering has not reduced. Prevalence of pain and suffering has not reduced. The ways to counter them have increased. But the prevalence is not reduced, because pain and suffering are very old, very old. They have their origin in the beginnings of evolution, in the beginnings when our consciousness was flowering, and it is still there in the inconscious. And we are all connected to the terrestrial inconscious. That is why we suffer, because we are not individuals alone. We are not standalone phenomena. Each one of us are not standalone phenomena. We are all connected with the terrestrial inconscious. At the level of the inconscious, we are no longer individuals. We are no longer individuals at the level of the inconscious. You see, when we go down to the subconscious what Sri calls subconscious is what Freud called the unconscious, and below the subconscious is the inconscious, which is a concept which Sri used. Before Sri nobody used that concept in that way. And the inconscious is connected, my inconscious is connected with the terrestrial inconscious. So all of us are connected. At the level of the terrestrial inconscious, all of us are connected with each other. And that is why everything that is there in the inconscious is lurking there, that can come up anytime, surge up anytime, and can be a cause for many things which we don't know. And also the mismatch between the dynamism of the vital and the inertial matter is also carried as a memory in the beginning. So that was a mismatch. The vital energy is dynamic, fast, and the physical is, of course, it has inert, it has got a mechanical energy, it has got some energy which is a mechanical energy, but that to harmonize both, it took eons and eons, it took thousands and thousands of ages for them to be harmonized together in the cosmic scheme. I'm talking about the cosmic scheme. In the cosmic scheme, it was not so fast that the harmonization of the vital dynamic energy and the inert mechanical energy will happen. And that caused a quiver. That caused a quiver, that because there was a mismatch, and then we still carry that quiver in ourselves. And therefore, that's why when we have diseases like nervous irritability, irritable bowel syndrome, very common diseases, you see they persist throughout life. Throughout life, you can have hundreds of remedies, of homeopathy, allopathy, Ayurveda, everything. You can try, but you will continue to have these things. You will not be free from these things forever in your life, because the origin is very, very primal. The origin is very, very old. So, and then also the vital had to dominate matter. You see, the vital had to dominate the physical to manifest love, beauty, and compassion. But you see unless the vital dominated the matter, forced the matter to come into its line, manifestation would not have happened. But then there is a negative side of it, because the vital dominated, the negative effects of domination also become important. So that desire, hatred, jealousy, aggression, all these things also started to happen, because the vital dynamism brings in these things also. When you are dynamic, when you are vital, when you are dominant, then the negative things of dominance, they will also produce these egoistic reactions. Now, what happens? These also go down, sink into the unconscious, and together with that primal friction and suffering, the negative disturbances of the vital, which will come out afterwards as egoistic disturbances, they get clubbed together, and that is the origin of psychosomatic diseases. Psychosomatic diseases are diseases which have both psychological and somatic components, and you can try all sorts of remedies. Even astrotherapy, gene therapy, this therapy and that therapy, but it will come and go throughout your life. All these things I'm telling you to understand that the power of the vital formation, is so very strong. Then you can understand some of us, when we understand it from the point of our own systematic problems and diseases, then we can have some idea that how powerful can be that vital formation. But still, that is another silver lining. The silver lining is that what? That even though the vital jumped on the matter and produced the friction, but why did the vital jump on matter? What was the motivation? What was the motivation of the vital to jump on matter? The motivation was, of course, motivation came from the supreme divine, which we call Satchidananda. Satchidananda, is Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Sat is the existential poise of reality, which is the essence of which becomes the essence of everything, in which poise it is known as the self. Chit Shakti creates a planes of consciousnesses, and Ananda gives the value aspect of reality. It is because of Ananda, it is because of bliss that everything is going to happen. Because everything is going to happen, behind it, that is this bliss factor, this Ananda factor. Therefore, that friction that produces pain and pleasure, that pain, at another octave, it can also produce pleasure. You see, that friction that originally produced pain and suffering. Mother once said that without suffering, you cannot progress in evolution. Without suffering, you cannot progress in evolution. This is what she said once. And you see, this is why, because the first friction will produce that pain and suffering. But the pain and suffering is happening because it has been sanctioned by the divine, and the divine also contains the Ananda, bliss factor, and therefore that another octave, another denouement, and that is also a vibration of Ananda, that is also a vibration of pleasure. That is also possible. And therefore, the friction that vibrates to pain and suffering in a different octave can give rise to bliss. And that is why yogis in India use this principle to turn pain and suffering into pleasure. The pain and suffering were turned into pleasure by the yogis of India because of this factor. But human nature can deviate pleasure. No? So yogis have, so yogis sublimated pain and pleasure to Ananda, the mystics formation. So the mystics also had their own formation. The mystical formation was also a different kind of formation. So this was another formation. This was another formation done by the mystics, by the yogis, that they turned the pain into pleasure. Because why it was possible? Because of the Ananda factor as the chief motivator of everything that is going on here. And but still formations, you see, disturbing formations persist. And Sri Aurobindo said there is something in the being that enjoys illness. Because in the inconscious, the memory is there. Because the memory of the original friction is there. So there is something in the being that enjoys illness. It is possible even to turn the pains of illness, like any other pain, into a form of pleasure. For pain and pleasure are both of them degradations of an original Ananda, because the motivating principle is Ananda, and can be reduced into the terms of each other, or else sublimated into the original principle of Ananda. So therefore, because Ananda is behind everything, so pain can be transformed into pleasure, or you can go beyond pain and pleasure to the bliss, which is beyond everything, which contains everything. And based on this, you see, therapeutic formations have also come. You see, therapeutic formations to alleviate pain and suffering would not have come unless Ananda was there behind the manifestation. Because Ananda is there behind the manifestation as the motive power, as the main value aspect. That is why we are seeking to transcend pain and suffering. You see, otherwise we would have accepted pain and suffering. We thought that is the end of everything. That is the beginning and that is the end. Why we should go beyond it? That is normal. But we don't think that is normal. We always think that we have to go beyond it. We always devise different ways how to go beyond pain and suffering. And therefore, there's different therapies have come. The different, what you call, the therapies in ancient India, all the therapies were designed by the great yogis to whom this Ayurveda, the science of Ayurveda came. And that is, it is not surprising that it came to the yogis, because they knew that for the Ananda of Satchidananda, that we have to strive. And for that, of the many ways that we are striving, one is the way of healing, the art of healing, that has to be brought. So you see, there are certain techniques which work on the vital plane. You see, there are different techniques, different therapies, they work at different levels of consciousness. So our allopathic modern medicine, it acts at the physical level, but there are techniques that work directly on the vital level. Ultimately, all levels, all planes are mixed with each other. So if you work at one plane, the other planes will also be affected because of the ripple effect. So there will be a ripple effect on the other planes also. It is not that each plane is isolated from each other plane. But there is one plane which is fundamental for each system of medicine. So like there are systems like homeopathy, where it is you see in homeopathy, otherwise you will find physically it is nothing, because it has been reduced to an infinitesimal. You see that molecules, it has been dilated to that extent where you don't find anything. But that is a vital energy. And Sri said that sometimes the infinitesimal is more powerful as it approaches more and more the subtle state. And from the physical goes into a vital or dynamic state and acts vitally. Acupuncture is something which acts on the vital physical energy. Otherwise, you can't explain its action. And there are therapies like Reiki, pranic therapy, magnetic healing. They act also the vital physical or the nervous envelope. No? That vital physical projects an envelope around us. And faith, prayers, meditation, they also work and strengthen that envelope. So the vital physical is not only inside us, it is projecting an envelope radiating around us. So these are the therapeutic, great therapeutic formations that have been devised. It all came from the minds of the great yogis, from the great seers. Today, in modern medicine, that in modern world, we are understanding them with our rational mind. But they came intuitively to the great seers. You must remember that the healing as an idea came as an intuition to the great yogis, to the great seers. Only afterwards, the rational mind took it up and they went on developing it. That is different, but the beginning has been an intuitive beginning. So the vital energy of the individual can be linked with universal life energy through creative yoga techniques. That's what Hatha Yoga does. The Hatha Yoga exercises, they can link your vital energy or your individual vital energy with the universal vital energy and can give you vitality, can give you more strength, can give you robust health and all that. And there are, of course, certain psychotherapies that act on the vital part of the mind. So these are the great therapeutic formations that have also been possible because the vital has been worked upon, has been understood. So that has also been possible. And so this is, Sri said that also vital physical, you can bring down the light and force. The peace and force must be called down into the vital physical part. It's not only that you bring it into the mind, but you can bring it to a vital physical part and the whole body until you feel that atmosphere and force pervading you, and in you always it is not only upon you, it is around you. If you still find a difficulty, it is because of a past habitual reaction in the nervous being and certain weakness. But then you have to persevere, not to consent to the invasion of the old forces. Then the habit will lessen and disappear, and the true force occupying the body will remove the weakness. You see, the true vital force that is occupying the body is not being able to work properly, but you have to bring the light and force from above so that it can work and the weakness can be removed. So the vital force is something which is occupying your body, but it is not being able to work properly. And also we have to bring down as in a different denominator the higher light and force that is above, so that the troublesome forces are removed and the higher force comes down, and then we can remove the what you call the weakness which is being held in the body. Difficult thing, but it is a point of sadhana. This is also a great sadhana to bring down the light and in the peace and force and light into the vital physical. Now we are talking so long. We are talking about the pain. I will talk a little bit of suffering, but I say that when the vital struck matter, it was not only pain, but it was also suffering. No? It was pain and suffering. Pain is actually one type of suffering. But if you see in a more broader way, it is actually suffering that is coming to us. Pain is a very great, what you call enigma throughout the world. So we started with pain, and it's easier for us to understand. But if you see the suffering as a whole includes pain, but suffering as a concept surpasses physical pain. That is emotional pain. That is this pain of what you call pain of the interaction, the pain being with the collectivity, the pain of being together. So the pain, suffering is there in every level. Suffering occurs at every level. And in evolutionary history, I see that Mother has made a very beautiful comment on this suffering in 12th August 1967. If you are conversant with the agenda, you can go to that reference of 12th August 1967, where she makes a very, very, very serious commentary on suffering. And she explains that in evolutionary history, humans began questioning and rebelling against suffering. And the first suffering was pain. When we were hunter-gatherers, the first thing that we had was pain. And then as civilization progressed, then other things which suffering holds, they also manifested. The first was the physical pain, then other types of things will gradually manifest as civilization is progressing. So, and then the point came that suffering was what you call such a big affair that people began questioning it. People were fed up with suffering. And Mother describes that before Christianity, Hinduism accepted that everything, including destruction, suffering, and death, everything is part of the one divine. So if it is joy, if it is suffering, if it is ananda, if it is what you call agony, everything is part of the one divine. That's the image of the Gita. So in India, we had a sort of savior grace because we had this kind of concept, which what you call, against all difficulties, has sustained our culture for thousands and thousands of years. The Indian culture still is sustained because this kind of philosophy was there, this kind of realization was there, that everything has come from the one divine. So this is one very great fact for which Indian culture is still sustainable after thousands and thousands of years. But in Christianity, and Christianity, Hindu, something different happened. Now, before Christianity, Buddha, and Mother described that Buddha was horrified by suffering and decay and impermanence. So he concluded that the only true remedy is not to be born again, to go beyond the cycle of life and death. So that was the release from true suffering. Now, at one point of time, which Mother describes very beautifully, and also shared with you, that when suffering could no longer be tackled, then people, one section of people in the earth, they decided to accept suffering, to glorify suffering, to put suffering on a pedestal, to worship suffering. You see, they accepted suffering. There came the need to bring down on the earth the concept of a divine suffering as a supreme means to make humans emerge from the unconsciousness. So you make suffering something, you produce the concept of a divine suffering. Otherwise, people can't get out of it. And then again, you see, this happened in the Western world where people were not going to renounce life. As in India, the ascetics renounced life. But in the Western world, they were not going to renounce life. They want to stay with life. And therefore, to stay with life, they have to stay with suffering. So why fight against suffering? It is meaningless. Ultimately, we'll succumb. So let us glorify suffering. And for that, the suffering, the crucifixion was accepted as a means of salvation. Naturally, crucifixion means that universal love was something which could only bear the extreme suffering. That is how you could propagate the concept of universal love. Universal love is something that can hold the utmost suffering that is possible in art, that the divine body is being nailed. But we can understand the type of agony, extreme suffering. Now, as Shervindu says, that men are still in love with grief. You see, when they see one who is too high for grief and joy, they curse him and cry, "Oh, thou insensible." If human beings see somebody is beyond grief and beyond joy, they think that that person doesn't have any sensitivity. And then Shervindu's famous statement, "Therefore Christ still hangs on the cross in Jerusalem." Therefore Christ still hangs on the cross in Jerusalem. So this is a very famous statement. Actually, Mother is making comment on this statement of Shervindu in the apropos that conversation on suffering. She was asked to make this comment on this slide. Therefore, Christ still hangs on the cross in Jerusalem, because there's a part of us which eulogize suffering. So we in one way we want to get out of suffering. In another way, one part of us still clings to suffering because it is also because it is very ancient. It is because it is ancient in terms of evolution. However, love was eulogized at the cost of power. Now, why I wanted to bring this, because for the last nearly 2,000 years, the crucified body has been one of the most significant vital formations. Has been one of the most significant vital formations that has held sway over a significant body of humanity. A significant portion of humanity, they are under a very important vital formation, a very significant vital formation, and not for 1 or 2 years, for the last 2,000 years, and that is the crucified body. And it is very important. It is a very important thing, very important realization. And then Mother says that Islam was a return to legitimization of sensations and joy and beauty, because Islam was wanting to bring power. Because love was there in Christianity, but power was not there. Even Jesus could not save himself from crucifixion. So then Islam got that power. But then Shervindu said, love and force together can save the world eventually, but not love only or force only. So it is not only love or not only force. The love of Christianity, up to some point, it helped. The force of Muhammad, of Prophet Muhammad, which he got, it has held sway. It is still holding sway. Both of them are still holding sway, but they are only for some time. After a time comes, then one has to look forward. One has to look forward because one has to go beyond love and force. Yeah. So that is, so you have to make another formation. You have to make another formation. And that is what Mother makes. Mother is making, you see, for the last, what I'm wanting to say, for the most powerful, what you call, collective formation, the formation in the collective sense in the world has been the crucified body for the last 2000 years, holding a sway over such a large portion of humanity. And the Mother is changing that. After 2000 years, she is changing that. You see, when 1956, she brought down the supramental force to the possibility of a higher being, a supramental being, a Gnostic being, was made was made feasible. And the New Year's message in the next year was, in 1957, 1st January, it is not a crucified but a glorified body that will save the world. It is not a crucified but a glorified body that will save the world. So the present creation stands as the inconscience from where evolution started. As the inconscious is impure, a bit of impurity always will enter into the evolutionary being. So the glorified body, it is very difficult to understand the glorified body in the present terms of the earth. You see, that is why the crucified body has got its own importance, has got its own sway. And at a certain point of time, of course, it had a great meaning. But now the time comes when one has to cross over to some other meaning. Mother discovered that the psychic being of the soul can be the template of the new creation, not the inconscious. The psychic being of the soul essence can replace the inconscious, and that would bring an intrinsic purity into the creation. This would result in a new vital formation, new and creative vital formation that would result in a body which is free from all suffering. You see, Mother is making a new vital formation, a supramentalized vital formation, a vital formation that has come from the Supreme. You see, our vital formations come at our level, but Mother is bringing down that heavenly archetype. She's bringing it and to form a different type of body. And the body is based not on the inconscious as from the past, a formation that is going to be based on the future, on the soul, which will be automatically light, adaptable, plastic, luminous, automatically free from pain and suffering. Even the organs will become more supple. The forms of dynamism or plastic transmitters, it would be instead of the grossness of the organs. So that is a very interesting thing, a new kind of formation that Mother is wanting to bring. So Mother is wanting to change, is changing the denouement of the whole thing. That for the last 2000 years, the way of salvation was the formation of the crucified body. And now Mother wants to change it to the higher formation of the glorified body that will now dictate all our aspirations, all our yearnings, all our going forth to the Supreme to build up something new. So that new supramental formation is now going to be present there and is now going to be working. Actually, it has been set in motion and it has started working in a very subtle way. It has started this work. And finally, I will say occult formations, because we lived out the occult. Finally, occult formations also have to express themselves in the vital plane to be active. Remember, in occultism, whatever formations are made are formations that are primarily vital. But practices of the lower occult utilize the vital plane to effectuate negative formations. If these formations can be acted upon before they reach the physical plane, disastrous consequences can be avoided. This is what Sri Aurobindo told when we were talking about whether astrology can actually help. Then Sri Aurobindo said that if the vital formation, as long as things remain in the vital plane, it's you can still intervene and do something. But if they come to the physical plane, then already what is to be manifested will manifest, and you can't help it at that time. So you have to act before. So this is a very important thing that you have to remember. And the higher occult forces have also to descend to the vital plane to produce transmutation and formations. So the higher occult forces which Mother is working upon, the higher occult forces are needed to effectuate what Mother says, to produce the new body. You need to have the cooperation and the the collaboration of the higher occult forces. The formations are needed for that. And this is the last slide, that classical asceticism tried to steer clear from the vital because they found it difficult to deal with vital formations. You see, one reason why the ascetics in India or all over the world, they went away to monasteries, of course, for their own sadhana, they had to go out. But one of the reasons was to get out from the outside world, which is full of vital formations, but you can't avoid vital formations. So better that they go to the hermitage, to the ashram, to the monastery, to the forest retreat. And this is also a reason that these vital formations are difficult, and that is why genuine spiritual aspirants, they avoid occultism. You see, many genuine spiritual seekers, they will not have any truck with any occultism. But Mother said that for a dynamic spirituality, you need to have the cooperation of the occult, but in a different way, the cooperation of the higher occult. You need to have the higher occult forces working, otherwise the fulfillment will not come. So Sri Aurobindo advocates a transformation of the vital with the supramental force that will produce higher order vital formations necessary to what you call produce new things on earth. Earthly perfection can be conceived by higher order mental constructs, and these have to be executed by transformed vital formations. No, if you want to have perfection of the earth, you have to have higher order things to come down, and a higher order vital formations are needed so that these things are truly executed. And what Sri Aurobindo said at the our aspirations in the Rose of God, the last two lines, which I repeat at the end, that transform the body of the mortal like a sweet and magical rhyme, bridge our earth, food, and heavenward, make deathless the children of time. Bridge our earth, food, and heavenward. So, earthhood and heavenhood, the heaven can only blossom on earth if the real vital formations from the supramental, they come and we allow us, we make us ourselves receptive to them, and we allow us to get transformed so that they actually blossom on the earth. I think that with that, I would end today and give it to Vladimir, pass on to Vladimir.
Thank you very much, Soumitra. It was wonderful. It was actually that metaphysical overview which was so needed to understand what vital is. We have a few questions here. First of all, from my side, I have one question that mental law, the mental formation, which is actually holding any vital kind of
Hiru's question is, of course, all those things are vital. Still, they fall in the vital world.
Absolutely.
All we're talking about, they are the animal tree, spirits, and this tree, and all they fall in the vital world. Of course, they fall in the vital world.
Right. So,
of course, the art, music, literature representing the glorified body via vital formation, the higher vital. Of course, you see, music cannot. You cannot manifest music unless you do it to the vital. To express the music, you see, if you express the music in a different kind of consciousness, that is a thing in the Indian custom which is called Anahata Bani. Anahata Bani means there is a music in a very high sphere of consciousness where there is no surface to strike, and therefore there is no sound. There is soundless music. So if you are operating at that level of soundless music, it is different. And great musicians who are great yogis or even great spirits, even people like Beethoven and Mozart and all, they brought all their inspiration from that Anahata Bani. The reason why Beethoven, when he was passing away, he was dying, his last words were, "I shall hear in heaven. I shall hear in heaven." These were his last words. Why did he say that? Because he was always in connection with that immortal music, which is soundless, because it is not striking a surface. Now, when you want to strike it on a surface, you need a vital medium. Otherwise, you can't make it. You can't make it what you call receptive to ordinary people. For us, to understand the music, to listen to music, to be receptive to music, you have to bring it down at the vital level. But then, of course, there is a higher vital. You have to you see there are very different levels of the vital. There's a supramentalized vital that will actually make the earth, the earthhood and heavenhood would be linked with the supramental vital. That particular stanza of life I gave from Rose of God is pertaining to the life plane, to the plane of the vital. So you have to work something there, find out and devise something there where the vital itself is involved and transformed or touched in a different type of way.
I was thinking about this Rose of God in one particular way. Why smitten purple? Why purple? Yeah? And what came to me this time is that, you remember, Mother describes all levels of consciousness, and purple is the vital level, actually. This is where it is smitten by the divine design.
And the word smitten before. The smitten is going to show that friction that is going to happen, that problem that vital is going to bring. That's why the word smitten has been given so beautifully. It has been just introduced there. Left it us to amplify and to understand. That's the word smitten.
Right.
Meaning that something other is going to happen. Some other string is to be struck. Some other octave is to be struck.
Yes, and there are a few more questions here about, sorry for my ignorance, I will read the question. Where do yakshas, most probably yaksha spirits, yakshasas, and tree and animal spirits,
They're
and
vital world. They're in the vital world. Of course,
these
they're in the
are,
vital world.
yeah. And yes, please elaborate and explain how to get rid once you are already facing pain and suffering, practical aspects, do's and don'ts. When you're already facing the suffering, what to do? Well, that's exactly the question to you as a psychologist and psychiatrist.
It is. You see that you have to work at many different levels. This getting rid. If you're already facing pain and suffering, you have to work at very different levels. In the outer levels, you have to accept whatever things are there in the present at the, our level of our understanding things, our level of cognition. So whether if it is pain that is to be relieved with the healing agencies and all that, that you have to go according to the norms of that age. But deep down, if you want to go to the origin of pain, you have to bring down the light into the vital physical. But before that, it is a very difficult subject. We have to have a separate session for it. Before you bring down the light to the vital physical, actually you have to work and meditate on the physical mind. Physical mind is that part of the mind which is the integrating center of all our habitual reactions. So pain also becomes a habit. So all our habitual reactions, all our nervous sensations and sensibilities and all, they are coordinated in the physical mind. And therefore the physical mind, which is the lowest level of the mind, above that is the great rational, ethical and all those minds, but at the lowest level, but still it is very powerful because it is a basic level. And there you have to concentrate and bring the, what you call, the light, the illumination, the force. And then after you bring the light into the, you have to learn to gradually to bring the light into the vital physical plane from where pain originates and suffering originates, then you will be able to go a step further. This is actually something which needs a separate session by itself. I hope once we will be able to do it.
Could we say also in this way that if we look at vital force, which is actually has established already certain kind of habitual way to deal with matter, with material formation, physical, that it becomes a habit or kind of sense of identity of the person. That's why people who suffer from certain chronic diseases, they miss them when they are gone. They want them back, as it were. They call them back, so that they should come back, because the identity of oneself was through that suffering or through that formation of some kind. So that's also another difficulty, to get rid of anything which is established.
But ultimately, that all that habit will be at the, what you call, at the level of expression, it is going to be coordinated by the physical mind. And that is why the light had to be brought into the physical mind. If you see that the physical mind is the mind of light, and that was the first thing that was being transferred to the mother on 5th December 1950. When Shyamanda left his body, the first thing that was transferred was the mind of light. And the mind of light was the physical mind. And the physical mind is the mind which is holding all our habitual reactions. And unless that is your mind, then you can't get off all over the habits. And that is why now I think that even for our individual selves, when I tell people to practice bringing the light to the vital physical, before that I tell to imagine or concentrate on the physical mind, and first try to bring your conscious focus there, and then go to the other, come down to the vital physical.
Basically,
because the physical mind is, once it becomes a habit, everything becomes a habit because it is coordinated there. At the level of vital, it is still nebulous, it is still flexible. But then things become solidified, things become what you call ingrained as habits when they go at the level of the physical mind. And that's why you see that it is so surprising. There is a physical mind which was first illumined. It is a mind, if you see in the hierarchy of minds, it is the lowest. The great rational, ethical, aesthetic, and all other minds are there above. But this is the base. And unless one gets over the habits, you can't change. Therefore, this light that transferred from Shyamanda to the mother in 1950 was the mind of light. And the mind of light is the physical mind which is illumined by the supramental light.
That's
Very
basically
difficult for
also.
us, but that shows that the difficulty of the problem. That shows the gravity of this problem. It's not so light.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what Mother says also. Many times people come to her with their problems and she removes those problems which were of vital nature. But then they call them back because that physical formation and with physical body is already a link. So they need it back to deal with it as if it is their own identity. And without it, they lose themselves. They don't know who they are, actually. So if that is not substituted by the psychic presence, then you would not be able to sustain oneself. One has to fall back into the habitual way of being.
So that also partly answers also Mr. Ramkumar's question when he asked where does life purpose of an individual form like a human being fit into all this. It is said that there are billions of us each with their own life purpose. Of course, that comes. All of us have a life purpose, but in most of us it is not there explicit on the surface. It is hidden, and unless we make a effort to bring what is hidden to the front, then then of course the purpose is not going to be served. To make the purpose of the life serve its ultimate aim, for each cycle has got one aim. You see, this question has got a broader perspective. Every cycle has got a different aim. In this cycle of creation in which we are here, the aim is to go towards the supramental. For there, that you have to be conscious and to operate from the level of your psychic which has to come forward. So that is necessary, but it is not possible that everybody will come and understand it. It is, even if a few people are open to this idea, they come and become as forerunners of the race, then the thing will be continuing. You see that the thing, then the ball can roll. Otherwise, you can't expect that everybody, though everybody has a potentiality, it will be worked out in everybody, because the potentiality may or may not be worked out. That is the necessity for sadhana. Otherwise, what is sadhana there for? Sri Aurobindo's main concern on immortality was the immortality of the species, so that the human being doesn't go away like dinosaurs and all, or that this creation doesn't dissolve, because the human beings doesn't dissolve, or they go away or they vanish. The human race has to be there. So he was thinking in terms of the human species as a whole. For the human race has to be there, this cosmic evolution that has to go on. You have to fit all these things into that cosmic evolutionary scheme.
There is an interesting question. Is a sense of humor a vital formation? Not taking life too seriously, it means.
Because of the real pandemic in the vital has now lost its force. This one.
No. Is a sense of humor. I just jumped over a little further. Is a sense of humor a vital formation? Not taking life too seriously, meaning that we should take life easy. Is it a vital formation, or maybe it is some kind of spiritual part in the vital formation, humor?
That we have to work out and see. Certain questions we cannot answer. Everything from our level of ignorance.
But Sri Aurobindo's humor was definitely.
Real cause of pandemic in the vital has now lost its force. That is difficult to say. That it is. It might. Apparently, it has subdued, but we don't know whether it can have a resurgence. It also depends upon the human collectivity. You see that the first time that this pandemic happened in 100 years back, when it happened, then Mother described that it was the World War I had ended, and there were many soldiers who were killed, and you didn't know at the time of killing that they were getting killed in a very brutal way, and the negative forces from those from those happenings, from those killings, they created a milieu. They created a milieu in which this kind of multiplication of this virus took place. So a milieu is needed. Now a milieu was created, we don't know. So Mother at that time, she expressed her view. We don't have that ability of the Mother to say what kind of thing happened actually. But definitely some milieu had been created by our human ignorance or our our vital indulgences or our something which was there, something which is there very definitely what you call deviant and distorted in our universal vital world. Something definitely was there which allowed these formations to happen. And Mother said, you see, what you say that they will go away. Mother said that pandemics, when they happen, they go away only for one reason. Only for one reason, the pandemics actually subside, they go away. And that is the reason is the presence of divine in matter. The presence of divine in matter. That is the one exclusive reason why the pandemics subside. So we have to hold faith on that and pray for that, that the presence of divine in matter, let us pray for that, let us invoke that, and then only we can say for surety that what all our prayers to the Mother will have an effect.
Yeah, there is one more question here. Can we meet our family members' spirit later in birth?
This is a very difficult question. We have to understand. You see what we mean by spirit. You see, there are different ways. You see, there are soul connections. There are connections at the level of the soul, which might not be biological family members. It might be people who had worked together at one time for a certain cause. They might come in the world again and they might meet. Yeah, and under strange circumstances they can meet again. That can happen. That can happen at times. That can happen. So that possibility cannot be ruled out. So that can happen. That happens. But it is also very difficult because if you see, Sri Aurobindo's theory of evolution is not that individualistic. It is more cosmic. It is more cosmic, and if it is very cosmic, so you have to see it in a way. For example, I will tell you that somebody who is a great musician like Beethoven, when he has passed away, his music stays in one sphere of consciousness. Afterwards, many people who are receptive to that music, they can manifest that music, and they can be there in many places in many points in space and time. It might not be together. They might be at different eras of time, different points in space. Now they can be scattered, but they might be susceptible. They might be. You see, they are connected in that way because they have an affinity for that kind of music. So it's a different kind of affinity. The affinities can happen at very different level. Affinities can happen at very different level. What you are thinking, what Vijay Lakshmi is thinking here today, where she is, somebody might have the same thought 2,000 miles away, and you might not know that she is having the same kind of thinking like yours. But might be that these two persons with the same type of thinking who are unrelated today in time and space may also be unrelated in next life, or maybe related. You can come together also to produce a new formation. Such a great variation is there. You have to think in the terms of a cosmic phenomena. It is not only an individual phenomena. In fact, they have said that it is our error in India to have more bias on individualistic way of looking at rebirth. It is not like that. But it is, of course, that people, I would say, for example, that you see that in mothers' great family spread all over the world, people from so many different countries have come together, and they feel that they have been there for many births. Many people feel who have come to the Mother and Sri Aurobindo that though they are not connected by culture, they are not connected to family, they are not connected with nations, but they still feel that they're united with certain cause, and they might have been united they might have been there at certain point at a certain age. They might have been there, or they have been working for some cause. They have been brought together. This era, they have been brought together so they can relate with each other and make that cause more strong. Might be that something like that can happen.
Could we say also that maybe that higher ideal is actually uniting them or bringing them together, which is higher force, and they all feel attracted to it? So coming back, that's the family of the Mother, basically.
Yeah. What she said when she was asked that why the family is breaking, she said that the family was the first unit of collectivity which was given the chance of progressing in consciousness as a collectivity. It has failed to do so. Actually, it has failed to do so. 2/3 of the cases of violence against the person all over the world is between first degree family members. So family has failed, and so then mother said that it is the time spirit, it is the divine which is wanting a new type of family, a family of soul comradeship, a family that is based on soul kinship all
So
over the world.
beautiful.
A new type of family will be coming up. So all these things, our concept of our spirits and all our own people and all are going to change.
Wonderful.
Anyway, this is a way all the oneness has to be recreated through many ways, and this is one way in which oneness has to be recreated, will be recreated. As Mother said, that no human race is pure today, and that is also one way, a different type of way to recreate the oneness. It was also ordained that no human race will be pure. No human group is today pure. There have been mixtures coming from all sides. This is a oneness. Oneness comes to many angles, many perspectives. Anyway, thank you, Vladimir, to conceive of such a what do you call
topic of
important topic.
Yeah, right.
But for Vijayalakshmi, I would say that of course that we should have an aspiration that in the next birth we should meet all who have the same aspiration, so that to bring the new age which Mother wants, the age of the supramental, the age of the Gnostic being. So we are all who are working together and have aspirations, we should come there and we should meet again. There is this famous line that we shall meet again. There's this death cannot part us, life cannot part us. We will meet in vision, dream. There's that famous line, I've forgotten that. We all meet together. At one pain or other, we all meet together.
Yeah.
Life cannot part us. We'll meet in death. So that was a famous line.
It's interesting, yes. So this sense of belonging to the Mothers and Sri Aurobindo's family is really much vaster than just like a group of people working together in the past, in one particular country or something of the kind. It has a totally different kind of dimension, much vaster, much more universal in a way. And
you see, it is very interesting. Once Michael and me and Ananta, we had gone to Boston Museum to see this place where they had kept Queen Hatshepsut's things. There's a place in Boston Museum where they have kept Hatshepsut's things. And Ananta, me and Michael went there. And we stood silently there for a long time, not talking to each other. And we were all feeling that many of people who have come to Mother in Sri Aurobindo were in Egypt, or somewhere they were connected in Egypt. And then when I went to Egypt, very interesting thing that the first thing that came to me, I just came from the airport to the hotel, which was just in front of the Sphinx, and that line came to me: occultism without spirituality. Occultism without spirituality. And then I understood, because Sri Aurobindo said there are 4 ways to go to the divine, like religion, intellectuality, occultism, spirituality. Because I never understood it, because in India, occultism and spirituality are mixed together. But that occultism without spirituality, that is Egypt. And then in Egypt, you can, if you see Egypt, and you can feel that vibration there, that there is a certain commonality which you can feel. You can get identified. Egypt is a place where you can identify with many things which go on. You will see the ancient sculpture, the ancient things that brings forth. And then how many times the Mother was there? Of course, she was there so many times.
It is that Chaldean.
So many times Sri Aurobindo was in Europe. You just don't, even if you don't believe in rebirth, you just read the ideal of human unity. One cannot write the ideal of human unity unless one was inside the thing. You see, one cannot write. If you see the 2 rooms where Sri Aurobindo wrote his things, in the guest house in Pondicherry, in our playground, the 2 rooms above, those 2 bare rooms which have nothing. And that time there was no fan. I think there was nothing there to support those 2 rooms, which have actually, they are so bare rooms, and that the whole time of all the writings he made while he was there. And from where did he get that? And unless he was in the middle, and there was no computers, there were no internet, there was no, how he can bring the whole world together, and all the small things of Europe, even the small places, the small regions, everything has been woven together into a great fabric. And one just cannot do that unless one was in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
You can see something from outside, that is a different thing. But to see something from inside, from the middle, it is not possible unless you are there.
And even people mentioned that he didn't have even books for the references. He took it from his memory.
References, but you don't. You cannot also have such references. It is not possible also. Even today, with the internet and all, you cannot link all references together. You can have everything, but you have to link them. So that you have to have a consciousness which links everything and brings everything into that place, fitting like a jigsaw puzzle. You can't do that. No internet, no computer, no modern thing will do that for you.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So we can stop here, yes, and then reconnect again. Thank you for this beautiful explanation of how vital is interacting with the physical and its role, and how it can be illumined by the psychic, and a new vision of the body comes through the vital, illumined by the psychic presence and transformed by the spiritual. And in a way, this is the way to proceed. It's a spirituality with occultism together, as it were. So they have to come back to one formation. Yes, thank you very much.
Dr. Basu. And just one quick announcement before people leave. Next Saturday, we are hosting Dr. Don Salman, who will present some groundbreaking work on how to wake up to the best sleep ever. This webinar has been in great demand, and he is encouraging you all to bring earbuds or headsets to the session next Saturday, because there will be some demonstration of the music he has been designing to help sleep. And it will be followed by a week-long course, which includes 2 Zoom sessions and begins on April 14th. So come to the introductory session next Saturday, and hopefully you'll have the experience of wanting to join his week-long course. I guarantee you, and he guarantees you, that it will be the best experience ever. So hope you all can join. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Basu. Very much appreciate